Gotta tell you, man, I always tell people that I've seen crazier, but with this one, I haven't. So
You're like, you've taken the cake officially.
yeah. And he was like, yeah, I figured.
I had a client one time, we were like literally a week from closing, and their house backed up to some greenway that someone else owned, like private property. And the woman who owned that property was walking her dog, like a smaller dog, and encountered a bobcat that wanted to kill her dog. So she runs inside, gets her husband's gun, shoots at the bobcat, goes through the fence of the house we're trying to buy, into the doorway of the master bedroom, and into the wall of the master room.
Oh, man.
I remember being like, this is Murphy, Texas. This isn't like some neighborhood. Like, this should be safe. And like,
Right.
it all worked out. But for a moment there, I was like, I can't say I've ever had that happen before. Okay. That's unusual. Real estate's the most interesting thing. I used to work in the medical field, and I thought nothing would get any weirder than that. Real estate, hands down.
For sure. John, you there too?
Hey, can you see me now?
Absolutely.
Oh, nice. Okay. Sorry about that. I thought I was talking and stuff, and y'all could see me and stuff. I had to click the button. All right. Cool. I didn't have to do that last time. Hey, Anna, how's it going?
Greetings. All is well.
Excellent. Good to see you. Thanks for coming, y'all. Appreciate it. All right. Johnny asks, which one? Which one what, Johnny? What were they talking about? All right. He asked if Johnny was there. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's, we got a few people on. We'll give a minute or two. We got some attendees. Thanks for coming, everybody. Just to let you guys know, there's nothing to buy here. We're not trying to sell you nothing. We're just going to teach you and talk about real estate here. So don't worry about the pitch at the end, because there's not one. And we're trying to, I guess we'll start off with the reason why we're doing it like this. How about that? Everybody was asking on the YouTube channel. So if you guys don't know, I've got a YouTube channel, Johnny the House Buyer. I am Johnny at johnnythehousebuyer.com. And a lot of people on my YouTube channel knew that we did meetups, and they were limited to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we're trying to do this to where we can include a bigger audience of people who want to learn about real estate investing without all the hype and without all the sales pitches and all that stuff that comes with it. So the format of this meetup, so to speak, will be, we're going to do our training of Wholesaling 101, how to get started, what it is and what it pertains. And the reason why we also added the building your team is because real estate is a team building sport, profession, if you will. And you definitely need to have key players as part of your team. So first of all, let me get a thumbs up or type something in the box if everyone can hear us okay. Just yes, or if we're audible. I'll be fielding the questions for today. There'll be an opportunity. And this is kind of a casual environment. So if you guys that are listening want to ask your questions, okay, got a thumbs up. Thanks, Craig. If you guys have questions about anything pertaining to the topic or not pertaining to the topic, either leave a message in the box or put in voice or put in video, and I'll put you on video to ask your question. Or even comments at the end. We'll have a Q&A section at the end if there's no questions during the training, and also give you guys an opportunity to tell us about you guys if you want to. You don't have to, for the listeners, and what you guys are doing in the real estate field, So this is kind of like a meetup type atmosphere. And this will benefit us, benefit you guys, benefit the people who will be watching this. And I am recording, so hopefully this will come out okay. So I think that we should get started here, definitely. So let me introduce you to our guests today. First off, we have our resident Dallas-Fort Worth wholesaling, real estate expert, overall businessman, Neil Rakabupathy. Thanks for coming, Neil. Yay! Oh wait, I got to do the sound. Hold on a second. I got to do the sound. Like I said, this is informal.
Do you have a Casio?
Yeah. All right. And we have, so he's going to field the questions and guide us through the steps of wholesaling. And we've got our one of the team members, Abra Barker, who is a realtor in the Fort Worth and I think Dallas area. We'll get more info on what she is. And so a realtor is definitely someone who you need on your team for sure. So we'll be focusing on the realtor experience and how they can help the real estate investor. Thanks for coming, Abra. Yeah. And very importantly, last but definitely not least, is Anna Mason. She is I've known her for a long time now, and she is the general contractor. The GC is definitely a person who you will absolutely need on your team. If you don't have one, definitely need to get one. Thanks for coming, Anna. Woohoo! Yeah. All right. So let us begin with Neil. If you can, just so people get to know you a little bit, give us a little bit of background from what I didn't say already, how you got started and where you're at now in real estate investing.
Yeah, I got started in real estate investing about 2 years ago now. Actually, in July, it was 2 years. So got started off watching Johnny's YouTube channel. And, before he had a meetup going and everything, and just kind of got a bunch of information and just sent out a bunch of letters and got my first deal. Asked questions at his first meetup, and eventually I was doing about 5 to 10 deals a month. And then since then I've branched out. I do apartment syndications now. I have a real estate coaching business as well, because when I started, everyone that I turned to said, "Oh yeah, we'll hold your hand through it for $20,000 to $50,000," and I was like, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
So that to help people out and give them a more affordable option, and then ended up hiring a marketing company to get my motivated seller leads, and they took the money and ran with it. So I started a marketing company, and so now run a couple of businesses out of Dallas, work with clients, students, mentees across the country. Have investment property as far as apartments go across the country as well. So yeah, me in a nutshell.
Awesome. We've got a couple of people here that can't connect, so I might drop off here in a second and try to help them connect. So let's move on to Abra. Can you tell us a little bit of background, how you got started and where you're at now?
Yeah. So my background is actually in marketing, communications, and operations. And I got into the industry because Anna had been doing general contracting renovations of residential property and was ready to start doing the flips. And it was the right time in my business to do something different. And I became the licensed realtor for our team and have been doing that for some time. I basically service mostly residential type clients. Commercial is a very different beast. So residential is sort of where we stay. We can do things all over the Metroplex. Tarrant County is our home base, but like my office is in Dallas. I had a listing in Murphy, or a client that sold in Murphy recently. And so I'm all over the place when it comes to the Metroplex. But I've been doing it for some time and have really enjoyed the data aspect of real estate. Real estate is a personal and relational business, but it's also mostly numbers. You got to understand your market. You got to understand your network of where the right properties are for the right prices, especially in the investment world. So that's kind of something that I've really enjoyed and have found that I guess I do well.
She's been helpful.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, and it's definitely got interesting. It's what we heard from before with the difference between your previous background and the real estate background. I imagine you like this one better.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial life is a bit more hands-on. Well, it's actually a lot more hands-on, but it enables me to build something with my own two hands, develop what I consider are good ethical boundaries, do business the way I want to do business versus having to have that dictated to me and then put out into the masses. And so that's been the most rewarding aspect of it. And then finding people homes, helping turn something that's crap into something that's better. We do a high quality product. That makes a very big difference. So there's a lot of purpose behind what we do that makes my work more enjoyable and worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we'll take a look if you want to share later on. Remind me if I forget to show some of the stuff. That last house you showed me was really nice. It was definitely turned into something beautiful. So let's talk about Anna, General Contractor, my one of my favorite peeps in the whole wide world. Thanks for coming. Tell us about your background and how you got started and where you're at now.
Well, I guess my previous corporate experience was in mortgage underwriting. I've worked for Bank of America, I've worked for Nation Star, which is now Mr. Cooper. So I did the mortgage underwriting thing, but it was right kind of when the bubble popped. It was like 2007 to 10, somewhere in there. And then I went into property management, and I helped manage really large apartment communities kind of all over the DFW area from Denton to I worked in one in Dallas. And they were really large units. And I think that's where, for the first time, I got the idea to, these people, the owners were coming in and buying these, and then they were fixing up the units one by one, and then turning around in 5 or 10 years and selling the whole apartment complex to someone else after they'd fixed it up. So I think that's kind of the first time I had kind of gotten that idea, I guess, or started to realize I liked that aspect. But I went back to mortgage underwriting for a bit longer, and then I got laid off again. So after being laid off 3 or 4 times, I just decided I was going to do something for myself. And I kind of just started my own business. I don't really know how or why. I just decided that's what I wanted to do. And so I worked in people's homes doing really cosmetic type of updates, kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, paint, different types of easy renovations in comparison to what could be. I did that for several years, and then I finally decided to kind of work smarter, not harder, and work in empty, vacant houses where the end game for me was a lot more rewarding in a monetary as far as what you make, because it's just hard sometimes to make what you need to working in people's homes, because it's just crazy. Anyway, so I decided to do that and start flipping houses 3 or 4 years ago, and we've just done several since there. Amber went and got a real estate license, so she is who I work with as far as the realtor that helps,
things like that.
Finds me a deal. Neil helped find us a deal that we did earlier this year, which was great.
It'll be our case study later.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a little bit of it. So now I'm kind of in the spot where I guess I'm an investor, and I do get, equity at the end of some of our flips, but I also still do the general contracting work, not only for my own properties, but if someone else was flipping a house and they wanted me to do the work, I definitely consider it. I just get to be a little bit more selective now that I have, the flips going as well, but I do both, and really, really enjoy it. I guess in hindsight, I look back and I guess I never enjoyed corporate America. I don't know, but I look back and I just realized I'm really happy with where I am and just the whole lifestyle that it kind of provides you. I do feel like it's harder work sometimes, but overall I do feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess getting off on a tangent, but for someone to understand Real estate investing is not like sit back and watch the money come in while you're sitting on the beach, right?
And sadly, that's what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people think. I mean, it really is work. I mean, so this isn't like one of them get rich quick kind of things or anything like that. So it really takes planning. It really takes knowledge of the business, and it really takes some effort to get it going. So that's something that definitely we should put forth out there for people to understand that it is a business, right? Business takes work. So I don't want to scare anybody off, but at the same time, I don't want to say that it's just a cakewalk, right? And especially dealing with people, right? The real estate is a step-by-step thing, and the real estate part is a simple, if you will, a straightforward process. But the dealing with people, and that's the reason why we have this team building webinar here, is that the people are people. You got to understand. You got to be cool to your team. You got to have a mindset of how do I make Anna money? How do I make Abra money? How can I make Neil money, right? And make money for myself. It's not like, hey, I want to go out and be the cheapest. I want the cheapest general contractor. I want the cheapest realtor. Oh, she's going to charge me 6%. I don't want her. It's who can provide you value, how you can provide value to them, and combine it to a win-win-win situation to where everybody comes out ahead. Everybody makes money.
Okay. Absolutely.
You can go cheap, but you get what you pay for.
I was going to say the same thing. I've learned the hard way. You always get what you pay for.
Always.
Whether it's someone fixing up the house or the title company you use or whatever type of shortcut you think you're going to take and it sounds like a great idea, just don't do it. That's my first piece of advice. Just don't do it because, I mean, unless you know the person personally, that may be different. But, yeah, I mean, you got to get your connections built with title companies, realtors, the list goes on and on. But you're right. Everyone does have to work together.
Yeah, definitely. And just to touch on a point that Neil talked about earlier, he came to the meetup, asked a few questions, pointed in the right direction, but he's whipping my butt in real estate investing. I mean, he's smashing it. So, don't let me scare you off by saying it's super hard work. If you put your mind to it, you can make a great living doing the real estate investing. And you can get started fast and you can be very successful if you have the knowledge, if you have the mindset, and you work at it. I mean, the work is hard. The work is the what makes things happen, right? You've got to take action and do the stuff. But contrary to what all the other popular gurus are saying, right, is you got to know what you're doing also. And if you don't know what you're doing, you have professionals like who I have here to guide you through, to help you through the spots you don't know. For example, when I walk through a house, I am not the greatest at evaluating, repair costs. So I always bring Anna or another GC or a couple and say, hey, can you walk through this house? And give me an estimate, and I would walk through with my sheet, right, and walk through with the estimate of everything that needs to be done. So I know my weakness as not being able to, if I look at the hot water heater, I'm like, it's a hot water heater, right? What's wrong with it, Then I ask them, hey, does this look good, right? So that's another important aspect of building your team. So, Neil, let's start with you. And also, Anna and Abra, if you've got something, or anybody, if you've got something to interject, feel free, to interject at any time. Can you tell us, let's talk about wholesaling. Tell us, what is wholesaling?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, wholesaling is essentially connecting the motivated seller to an investor buyer for them to buy the house, fix it, flip it, and make a profit. What you're essentially taking out in the middle is your assignment fee, which is what you get paid for finding the deal, negotiating the deal, and getting it to the title company and getting it to closing. So as a wholesaler, your job is to just cultivate those relationships with your buyers and to continually find those motivated sellers to bring those deals together and put those together, and so that you get paid in the middle.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so that's a good overview. What skills, to me, the skills you need for wholesaling are sales to some degree, negotiation for the buyer, for the seller, and marketing. Marketing is a big factor in that. Can you expand on what skills, I mean, since you've done this many times, what skills are needed to be a successful wholesaler?
Yeah, I mean, in the right sequence, it comes down to marketing, which is finding the motivated seller, sales and negotiation, talking to them, setting an appointment, walking their house, building rapport, building trust. In order for someone to do business with you, they got to know, like, and trust you, right? That's the trifecta. So, with marketing, you get the knowing part down, and then you got to work on your sales skills and your communication skills and your interpersonal skills to, build that like and trust with them, so that the seller, even though they're only doing one transaction with you, it's probably one of the biggest transactions they're making in their life. And so there's got to be a huge level of trust there. So they've got to think of you. I mean, of course, they know that most investors are out to make money. They're out for a profit. They're not a non-profit business. But at the end of the day, you still got to build trust and let them know that you still have their best interests at heart.
Yeah, definitely. So how would you, if you're dealing with, you're marketing to people who want to sell their house, basically, right? So when you're talking to them, they don't know you, right? So how you're talking about trust, how would you build trust with them? You can't just go in and say, hey, dude, I'm going to buy your house, right? I mean, that's kind of the wrong way to go about it, right?
Right. Well, I mean, obviously so I do a lot of online advertising. I don't believe in the offline method anymore. I think it's very outdated and very competitive. Don't get me wrong. My first deal was from direct mail, right? But at the end of the day, I do think I got lucky with that first deal. And that first deal kind of propelled me forward. But if your letter is in their mailbox as a investor, there are probably 20 other letters from that day that are similar, and they're getting 20 others for every day of the week, So when they see you on places like Google and on Facebook, and they see your website, that in itself intrinsically builds that trust factor, because you're not just some guy who, got up in the middle of the night and put out a bunch of yellow signs at intersections, because, people get annoyed at that. People take those off all the time. It's not just code enforcers and other investors. I've seen on numerous occasions just homeowners taking them out because they think it makes their neighborhood look bad, So when you're doing these online marketing strategies, you're coming off as the expert, and you've got to tweak your strategy to speak to the sophistication level of your market, right? Most motivated sellers aren't the most sophisticated when it comes to online marketing and just overall online presence. And so when they see your website, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, and your pages and everything, and your ads keep popping up on their feed, that builds a certain level of trust, because they only see that from big companies and other prominent brands. So that in itself intrinsically builds a trust with them, even before I get them on the phone.
So I still do direct mail, and like you said, it's diminishing in return. They do say for sure that, hey, what makes you different from this stack of letters that I've got in the mail? What would you say to them? How did you get your deal when you did direct mail?
When I did direct mail, I was actually one of 40 other appointments set for that weekend. And so at the end of the day, the only reason I got that deal was because I offered a little bit more than what everyone else was offering. But I had to structure the deal creatively to make it work. Because that house, the ARV on that house was $265,000. and you know, most investors were offering 70%, 75% in that neighborhood, and he owed more than that on his mortgage. And so I ended up having to do a subject to deal, which I kind of get off topic there, but a lot of that was to, you know, a lot of that is attributed to building trust and just talking to him. Most investors walk into a house, they got a notepad and, you know, or an iPad, and they're not even talking to the person, right? They're not talking to the seller. All they're doing is just taking notes and just, you know, saying, oh, what's this, what's that, what's this. But a lot of it is just building rapport with that person. If you treat the people that, it's a people-based business, right? If you treat the people like they're people and converse with them and figure out, you know, who they are, they're more likely to do business with you.
Yeah, you know, I get a lot of questions on the YouTube channel about new people trying to talk. A big barrier is once they do get the appointment, right? And they go to the appointment, how do you start to be nice and establish trust? I mean, do you find some common ground? Do you find some kind of icebreaker? Do you find, I mean, how do you get on their good side? I mean, is there some specific tactic, or is there, you know, some kind of, you know, secret method that you use to get on their, to get their trust?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's no secret sauce or anything like that. A lot of gurus and a lot of courses out there, you know, put out this idea that you have to position yourself as the expert. And so they kind of train you in your scripts and in what you're saying to these people, that to position yourself as an expert. But when you try to do that in a conversation, whether you're trying to do it or not, it's always going to be perceived as you're looking down on them, right? If you're doing online advertising, for example, you're already positioned as an expert. They found you. You didn't knock on their door or call them repeatedly or send them a letter. They called you. So you're already the expert in their eyes. So at that point, you stay on their level and you talk to them and you build that rapport with them. You know, just have a conversation, right? You meet a new friend or an acquaintance at work, at school, at whatever, you know, whatever stage of life you're in, you're just gonna have a conversation with them, right? Hey, what's going on? Why are you looking at selling the house? Tell me more about it. You know, you know, and depending on how the conversation's going, it's what are you planning on doing after you're moving out? And that's not really helping me out from a business perspective, but it kind of helps me connect with them and you know, find similarities and things like that.
Johnny asks, any sales books or videos you recommend or that have helped you a lot in your career?
Not particularly. I mean, everything I tell you is going to be pretty cliche. How to win friends and influence people, right? I mean, it's not new, but the whole you know, takeaway closing and all of these closing methods that all the sales gurus are pushing these days, they might work well for some industries, but at the end of the day, you're not trying to pressure them into a sale. You're trying to help them solve a problem for them. And that, at the end of the day, that's what real estate investing is, right? You're trying to solve the problem for them. So, you know, you can try all the sales closing methodologies and everything else.
Okay, so the main thing for me to establish rapport for potential sellers is find out why they're selling. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
So the number one thing, the key for me, is somehow, some way, even directly ask them, hey, why are you selling? Find their pain point, right? Hey, I'm selling because this, and then, you know, try to narrow down on their pain point and help them solve their problem, right?
Absolutely.
So a couple of good books by Craig. He says Sales, Grant Cardone; Marketing, Seth Godin; Leadership, Jim Collins; Negotiation, Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss. Read those, most of those. Those are good. Obviously, Grant Cardone is also a great, oh, there you go, a great motivator as well. But thanks a lot, Craig, for your input. Appreciate it. But But definitely, I think the key is to find out why they're selling, the specific reason why they're selling, and then try to hone in on that and solve their main issue. Because why they're selling, I'm sure you've ran into a lot of this. Why a person's selling is different from person to person, right?
Absolutely.
It's not always that they're selling to move or something. They've got to move.
Yeah, it's usually foreclosure. My mom passed away. I gotta downsize to pay for my kids, school supplies. I got a house that one of my students actually went to look at in, I believe it was in Lavon the other day, and her reason was just, I bought this house 5 years ago, with the intention of building it out and fixing it and moving there when I retire, but it ended up as she's just trying to get money together for her children's school supplies. So, it's all kinds of things. As far as just the wholesaling process goes, a lot of it is just building rapport, getting that contract, and then going out and marketing it and finding a buyer.
Okay, so let's go in that route. Let's talk about the step-by-step process from the time that you put your ads out there to the time you sell the house. What are those steps, and what are the process of completing those steps?
Yeah, so as soon as my ads go out, people opt in. They give me their information. Now, at this point, I've got so many systems and softwares that kind of have an integrated process to where as soon as it goes in my CRM, which I use InvestorFuse at this point, automatically triggers a call via call rail to my cell phone so that I can get to them within minutes of them getting their information in. And so they get on the phone with me. If I answer, the call connects to the buyer, or I'm sorry, the seller, and we get on the phone. We just talk about the property. I ask them, normal discovery questions. Hey, how's it going? This is Neil with, company. Is this, and go through the process. Yep, InvestorFuse, Craig. So I just go through the process, ask them about their house, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, why they're looking to sell, how soon they're looking to sell. And the very last question, the most important question, is what are you looking to get for it?
Okay.
And I see a lot of people make a mistake on that question. They phrase it as a yes or no question, allowing the seller to worm their way out, right? A lot of people say, do you know what you're trying to get for the house? Do you know what ballpark of an offer you're looking for the house? Which allows the seller to say, oh, no, I don't really have an idea. I ask the question, what are you looking to get for the house? And so usually, they try to get out of it, but at the end of the day, they give me at least a range, right, between $5,000 to $10,000 apart. They give me a range of what they're looking to get. Now, based on that, I go in and do my research. I don't really pull comps or do any research before I get them on the phone, because at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is some people you'll never get on the phone, right, and you'll never be able to schedule that appointment. So I'll schedule the appointment with them. As soon as I get off the phone with them, I'll go pull the ARV, run comps, and check my numbers. And based on what they told me, I kind of estimate whether I can be anywhere close to their range or not, if it's at all.
That's good. All right. So how do you pull your comps? Use a realtor or use a software?
So initially I use software, and then I use a realtor. As important as a realtor is to have in your business, you've got to make sure that you're cognizant of their time and the value that they're adding to you by valuing their time as well, right? So you can't just bombard a realtor. For example, when I'm running all of my ads on full force, I get upwards of 40 leads a day, right? And so when all this is going on, I can't contact a realtor on 40 different properties in one day, every single day, and ask them, hey, pull comps on this, pull comps on this, pull comps on this, right? So I use different software. There's one called PropStream, which I recommend. There's one called Propelio, which I also recommend. And they let you pull comps, all the sold properties, and they let you pull all this data. And
yeah, I've got a affiliate link for Propelio for the best price. I'll put it somewhere up here. down in the message, or what I'll do is I'll take notes. I'll send all this information to all the people who have registered for the webinar, registered for the meetup, and we'll get all these links to you guys out there. InvestorFuse.
Yeah. So you still want to be cognizant of their time as a realtor. They're going to be a huge asset to your business, but you still want to make sure that you're not just giving them busy work for deals that may or may not even pan through, right? Now, at the end of the day, if I, for example, at this point, when I've done my own research, there are one of two ways I go. One way is I think that I can offer them something close to their range. And so I just go on the scheduled appointment. I confirm the appointment the day of, and I just go on the appointment. If what they're asking for is too close to the ARV, or if it's way off, I call them back and I tell them, hey, listen, based on my research, this is the range that my offer would be in. Now, if you still want me to come take a look at the house, knowing that, I'd be more than happy to, but I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste, both of our time. So what do you think? And so I give them the option. And this is good and bad in that sometimes they say, oh, no, that's not good enough. But also, that the people that say, yeah, come anyway, you can tell how motivated that seller is, right? You can gauge their motivation level without asking the direct question of what's your motivation level, right? So you can get a lot.
How do you gauge that?
I'm sorry?
How do you gauge that? I mean, on the phone.
Well, it just depends on what their answer is, right? Like, for example, if I tell someone, hey, I know you were looking for $200,000 for your house, based on my research after I just got off the phone with you, it looks like the best I'd be able to for you is somewhere between $130,000 and $140,000, right? And their answer is either, oh, no, that's too low, I'll keep looking around, or I'll hire a realtor, whatever, right? Another answer could be, well, why don't you come take a look at it? Maybe it'll change your mind if you see the house. Right. And the last answer is, yeah, that's lower than what I was expecting. But if you can close in a week or two, then yeah, I'll take that offer. And so based on that, you can gauge. Their answer is never going to be kind of hidden, if you will. And so they won't try to be upfront, but it'll always come across on kind of the different information that you're looking for.
Okay, cool. Anna, Abra, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are back.
Awesome.
Sorry. Don't know what happened.
No.
Difficulties.
Internet problems. It's all good. It's all good. Cool. So we're talking about realtors, bothering realtors. Okay. So the first thing I ask a realtor is, and ask everybody that's on my team, do you invest in real estate yourself? Right.
Right.
So the key thing for me is to find team players who actually have some type of knowledge on the business.
Yeah.
And also what Neil said is, don't bombard you with every time I need an ARV, get your ARV, kind of try to estimate the ARV myself. And if it passes the rules and the criteria, and I think that it's a good deal, then go and talk to and ask for comps for the realtor, because you don't want to ask comps every 10 times a day, right? I mean, that's just not cool, right? So Abra, for you, what would you say for a real estate investor who wants to get comps? Obviously you would want to do the back end sale from them. So my advice for investors would be, if you're going to ask comps from somebody, be prepared to do some business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about working with investors as a real estate agent is that they're the best clients because they're really going to close quickly and they're usually going to involve cash. The problem is that investors tend to use multiple realtors, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's really hard to say, like an ARV, depending on the neighborhood, depending on how many comps, like in Fort Worth, there is a certain neighborhood, for example, that has 14 active homes, 14, all in the same price, all in the same time frame, pretty much within a 1 mile radius. And then if I'm going back to look to see what would be an accurate, like I'm a conservative ARVer. I want to make sure the number you get is the number you can actually get. I think about the market to come. I think about, because we're kind of in this tilted area here of where we're no longer in a seller's market. We're not yet in a buyer's market. And so every month, every season dictates a very different number and drive of that price. The good news is that when you work with an agent who understands the investment side, they're also going to understand what the investor is going to put into the home versus what a resale will do. We've learned before that you could have a very strong agent who can negotiate, sell, and buy homes in the residential area, but doesn't always know how to guide the investor on making the most prudent financial decisions on the renovation. Maybe that the typical way that neighborhood sells is not having granite. Maybe it has carpet in the bedrooms, and maybe it doesn't necessarily paint the exterior. The investor needs to know that, because if they go in and do the same thing they do in all their projects, they'll lose money. They'll have a hard time selling it, or they'll be overpriced and sit on the market too long. So whenever working with an agent, you first want to figure out, like, do they understand the point of your business? Number two, are you willing to truly commit to them? Because it does take time for them to put into your ARV. They may take you there to tour it. They may look around the neighborhood. They may, like, if they do what I do, they're going to call agents. They're going to figure out exactly what that area looks like. I do a much deeper dive because, especially in our business, I don't want to be wrong when that house hits the market. I don't want to sit longer than it's supposed to. I don't want to have to take a price cut later down the line. I don't want to do a buyer's agent incentive. I want it to sell within the first week. So for that to happen, my numbers got to be pretty darn good. And there's several other things that play into that don't quite play with what your question is, which we can get into later. But I think that those things are really important to consider, because agents are willing to work with investors all day long. It's how serious is the investor? I get calls all the time of people wanting investment properties, but I never hear from them again. And I'll do all this work and they'll tell me where they want to be, and I'll find what they're looking for, but then they'll ghost me. And I don't know if they're working with someone else, if they've changed their mind, if they're no longer looking at that. And the world of real estate is fast paced. So it's not that we don't understand that it needs to be done ASAP, or it may shift ASAP. It's that the communication has to be there for me to bend over backwards to do that for you. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. And the way, and there's lots of ways to calculate ARV, and just to define ARV is the after repair value. It's what the property would be worth after you repaired it. So the basic concept of investing is you get a property, you do the repairs, and then you sell it. So the after repair value is what you would ultimately sell it for. That's what ARV means, for those of us that don't know ARV. So I've done a video. I'll put a link in the description or up here somewhere on how the best way that I calculate ARV, using comps. Like you said, I use sold comps. I use more than 3 comps.
Yeah.
If I can't get 3 comps, don't do it. Square footage got to be the same. The years got to be similar.
Yeah.
The square footage got to be. So I'll put the video up there, and we won't get too far deep into that.
One of the things I would suggest that some people don't think about is that in certain parts of the Metroplex, and I can't speak for those who are out of state, sorry, but for certain parts of the Metroplex, neighborhoods are really unique. And you could find, maybe 5 comps in that particular edition of that neighborhood. Like, let's say the neighborhood's called Rolling Hill Estates. And let's say there's like 10 comps within that one neighborhood. But let's say 2 of them actually really kind of fit the criteria of what you're looking for. At that point, you can go outside of the neighborhood. But if at any point in time you're looking at that neighborhood and you see numbers in that neighborhood, you kind of have a ceiling. You could try to go away from that neighborhood. But like I mentioned in my example earlier, when you've got 14 homes on the market, if you're pricing yourself closer to a mile out and you're not sticking into that neighborhood, you're not going to get it.
The appraiser's not going to use that.
No.
Too. Appraiser's not going to use it. Nobody's going to use those just because you want to cherry pick.
Yes.
The highest
Don't
ones.
cherry pick unless you have the luxury to. Some areas there just aren't any choices in that neighborhood.
Right.
You can, but if you start cherry picking and you've got a plethora of options, other agents are going to notice that when they submit an offer too.
Well, and John, real quick, I've got 2 things about realtors that I'd like to share if I can.
Sure, of course.
One thing I think I've learned in having a business partner now that is a licensed realtor is even I still work with multiple realtors. And the way that we do that is I have another friend, Lisa, who's a realtor. If she brings me the deal, she gets paid on that transaction. I do not, and I think that's also part of being ethical and being just like, now, you know, I don't know.
Upstanding
person, having moral, I don't know. But to me, it's just kind of like, she brought me the deal. I'm not going to take it and give it to Abra, let her do the transaction and her get paid on it. That's just not right. Now, if someone else brings me a deal, Neil brought me a deal, for example. He brought me a deal. He got paid on it. Now, on the back end, when I resell that house, Abra lists my properties pretty much every time. So there's still some incentive for her to review my paperwork and make sure the transaction looks correct and stuff. But on the front end, she may or may not make anything specifically, but that's just I would encourage everyone to have multiple realtors, because the thing is
you never know.
But you have to be consistent with them, and you have to be good to them. If they know that every time they bring you a deal, and it won't be every time, it'll be once. If they find out one time that they brought you a deal and you ran and gave it to someone else and cut them out, you're done. You just burn that bridge, game over with that realtor. And they could be fantastic. But that's one thing I wanted to kind of just like, I've learned that as I've evolved through my business. The second thing is that I have learned that I just didn't understand is there are realtors that are really good at helping find properties. And then there are realtors that are really good on the resell end. And there are some that can be great at both. But my experience so far has been that, you know, because I used to say if you brought me the deal, you could have the resell as well. But that changed after a couple of situations I had in which certain people would bring me great deals and I would purchase the house and I'd fix it up. And then we'd go to relist it and I would give it to them again, thinking I was honoring what I said I would do. And then that did not work out well. So just fair warning that a realtor is not just a realtor that is a realtor that is a realtor. There actually are some that are really great at listing properties. And then there are some that are really good on the acquisition side. And so I think, keeping your options open and working with multiple people is going to really help you figure out between your team that you're working with who is best for you to pick in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as you communicate that, it would never offend me to have someone bring us a deal that we could buy, because I care more about the business than I care about that one-time commission. And as long as it all checks out, that's what we're going for. And there's so many real estate agents in this Metroplex, so many. And not every one of them, unfortunately, is that great. So you do have to do research. You do have to work with them and figure out what their knowledge is.
That's a point I was about to say, is that there are a bunch of realtors, right? And I don't want to talk bad about you realtors, but
there's few worth their salt.
A lot of them aren't worth nothing. You know, so you've got to really, that's why I said before, hey, do you invest in real estate? Do you work with investors? That's the two questions that I always ask, even realtors, general contractors, most people on my team. I ask them, are you an investor? And that cuts out most of people, right? Do you deal with investors? If a realtor says no, I don't deal with them, because it takes a lot. It takes a different mindset from a retail realtor standpoint to a realtor that deals with investors.
Right.
Well,
it is a different game.
There's a big difference between buy and hold and resell. So, and those are very different rehabs. Very different rehabs. And so if you don't know what your investor is going for, you'll not only suggest a different ARV, you might pull the wrong comps, and then you're going to focus on all the wrong markets as to what they're going to put in that house. And then they either under or overbid, and you're really in a bad spot.
Yeah, that's a real good point there too. So for using the general contractor, right, Anna, rehabbing, if I as an investor tell you, hey, how much rehab will this take? I mean, the very general question, right? And I ask you that all the time. How much rehab will this take? Do you follow up and say, well, what do what's your exit strategy? Or, what, are you going to buy and hold it? Or are you going to sell it? Or are you going to wholesale it? Are you going to flip it? What questions would you ask an investor?
I mean, I think that's the main one, is like, what's the end game for them? Because I think if you're going to buy it and hold it, I would do some of my upgrades differently. Like, I would put a lot of tile. I'd put a lot of tile baseboards. I'd do tile further up the walls in the bathroom. And that's all so that there's a lot, I mean, not bulletproof, but there's a less likely chance of things getting damaged or having to be fixed and things like that. And so there's just different renovations that I would do. There's different places I would put my money. And then the other thing I compare to is looking at things that are selling in that neighborhood and for, the price point that they would want to get eventually. I'll look at how upgraded they are, because if everyone's putting in, butcher block countertops, you don't want to put in granite. Or maybe everyone has granite, but they don't have new cabinetry. They've just repainted old cabinetry. There's some situations, if the cabinets are ruined and you have to replace them, that's one thing. But if they're in good condition and you could paint them and kind of, be comparable, that's why they're called comps. But if you could be comparable to other houses in the neighborhood at that's the main thing. So kind of figuring out what their end game with it is. And then also, I guess the other thing that's important to me is some people, when they call me out, I'll go out and they'll say, well, I only have $20,000 in my budget. What can you do? Right. And then there are other people like you most of the time who say, what would this cost? So there's kind of two different approaches, because sometimes you could put $20,000 into a house and you might make a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 profit, or you could put 40 or 50 into a house and make $40,000 or $50,000 profit. It all just depends on, maybe the time of year. Are we going into winter? Are we getting out of summer? And so prices typically go down. Are we, maybe they just don't have that money to invest. Maybe they don't want it to be that long borrowing money, because one would take twice as long as the other, more than likely. So there's a lot of factors, but basically budget and what they're looking to do, and then what their end game is as far as real estate. And really for me, that's usually just a buy and hold. They're either going to rent it or they're going to sell it, or they're a personal client. It's going to be their house or they live there. But as far as real estate goes, it's usually just those two answers. Either they're reselling it or they're going to buy it, hold it, and rent it for a while first. And then hopefully the upgrades will maintain their value until they sell it.
So let's talk about the level of rehab, right? Mm-hmm. So my goal usually is to rehab it to the level of the comps in the neighborhood, right? Correct. So
that's a great,
So if an investor were to go underboard or overboard, some people just want to make everything granite or whatever.
Right.
This is part of the realtor's job, maybe, or the general contractor's job.
Both. It's a good combination, because the realtor is going to be the one that needs to supply you that information and needs to pick things that are really close to what yours would look like, square footage, those type of details. So that is a lot on the realtor. But then the general contractor is more from the aspect of ensuring the liability to profit ratio, and kind of determining like, we don't need to touch that, or it's going to get out of control, helping with the budget, and basically telling you how much it's going to take to make it look like what the realtor has presented.
Because the GC's job is the task of performing the rehab. Not every GC, the fact that Anna knows these information is because we have a partnership where when I walk her through an ARV, we may even go tour other homes in that neighborhood. Like, we're truly a deep dive, because the money we use is not hard money from a bank. It's from family and friends. So we're not losing anybody's money.
Yeah, so we have personal investors.
So in addition to our own money. And so what we're doing is trying to ensure, regardless, that we're going to kick our ARV, if not higher. But the GC doesn't normally do that. The GC is going to come and they're going to say, this is what you want me to do. This is how much it's going to cost. This is your timeline. This is what's going to change if there's anything added or taken away or rain delay or whatever. The realtor really has the biggest hand in that, because the realtor is the only one who has access inside of those homes. They're the only ones that can tell you whether or not that neighborhood's going to like trend that way. And then they're going to be the ones that tell you what those finish outs need to be. Our case study later, we're going to show you are our finish outs, because that home is a true example of how finish outs change the value of that property. Yeah. And it was purely based on the fact that we analyzed the market. I could show enough comps to show that we would probably do the best home in that neighborhood that was hitting the market at that time. So at the price point we were at and at the finish outs we were having, it was so much easier for me to say, this is your number. This is your number all day long.
Well, and that's important because when you go as an investor, when you go out there for the first time, you need to have already talked with your realtor or looked at the comps yourself. Because one thing, I guess I didn't mention this earlier, but I need a list of what you're wanting to do. Because I can look at the house and pick it apart for you and tell you every single thing I would do. But everything I would do may not fit in your budget. You may be like, I don't want to touch that. That'll take too long, whatever. So I would say before you meet with someone, to get an idea, you either need to know how much money you have to spend and just say for $20,000, what could you do to upgrade this? Or you need to have a list of the things you pretty much want done and then say, how much would this cost? But that, it kind of goes with what I said, but some sort of list or bullet points of like, you know, fresh paint, new flooring, new appliances, new countertops, like whatever it is that you're thinking. And then the general contractor will point out details to you along the way, but some sort of rough draft, if you will, of what you're wanting to do be very helpful.
All right. So Neil, do you take the general contractor's advice, or do you estimate the rehab costs yourself?
Well, when you're wholesaling, it's a little bit of a different game than when you're flipping a house, right? I can't afford, not in a monetary sense, but in a relationship sense, I can't afford to take a GC or a realtor out with me when I go look at a house. I can't afford to ask for comps on a wholesale deal because neither of them are getting paid on that deal. Because I'm not the one that's going to be fixing it. I'm not the one that's going to be selling it. So I can't afford to do that. Now, I use multiple different investment strategies, right? So I fix and flip and I wholesale. And so because of that, I still have those relationships in that team in place. However, I don't take them on every deal because when I first get there, I don't know if I'm going to wholesale it or flip it. And so I can't afford to take someone else out there where, you know, and waste their time. Sometimes it's far out. So like if it's an hour drive for them, I don't want to waste 3 hours of their life for them to not get paid, right? And so on a wholesale level, I've walked through so many properties and I've, you know, done so many of these deals that I can estimate repairs within about a $5,000 margin, usually about 10% depending on the size of the house, right? I'm not too far off, but I can be off. At the same time, as a wholesaler, you have to be cognizant that every investor you talk to, that every single one of them have a different GC and have a different realtor. So every single one of them are going to end up at a different ARV, and every single one of them are going to end up at a different repair number. Regardless of how thorough or how well you do your research, and regardless of how well you put this wholesale package together, every single one of them are going to end up at a different number, regardless of how good of a job you do. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's higher. Doesn't mean you did a bad job. It's just how it is. Now, the caveat to that is obviously there are wholesalers that overinflate ARV on purpose and on repairs significantly, right? Now, when I say I'm pretty close, I'm within a 10% margin, right?
I agree with that.
But when a lot of these wholesalers overinflate it, they're adding $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to ARV and you know, lowering the repairs by more than half.
Right.
And so at that point, that's when you lose buyers, that's when you lose trust, and that's when you lose those relationships. But at the end of the day, on a wholesale deal, I'm not taking contractors and realtors out there because they're not going to be compensated on that deal. And so it really doesn't make sense. So as a wholesaler, since this is wholesaling 101, although these relationships are important, there are a lot of these skills that you have to develop on your own. Not saying that you have to be great at comps from day one, not saying you have to be great at repairs from day one, but there are tools out there, right? There are multiple real estate investment tools. We talked about PropStream, Podio for comps, but there are tools out there where you put on a computer and you just put in square footage of different rooms, what level finish job you want, and it'll estimate repairs for you. Now, are they going to be 100% accurate? Probably not,
Yeah.
but they're going to be pretty darn close. And you can know those different material costs and labor costs, and eventually, as you start doing more deals, you'll be able to just walk in without notes and be able to estimate it. However, you do still need to learn how to do that starting out.
Yeah, that's good. Talking about rehabbing and stuff, Anna, what role does the GC play, and how do you help the investor? Not necessarily the wholesaler, just the investor in general.
Right. I think that the main thing that the general contractor does, I mean, the most stressful part of what I do is you assume a lot of the liability. I mean, when it comes to working on the house and going through those repairs, and you want to be bonded and insured and all of those things, or you want to use someone that is. But the major role that the general contractor plays for the investor is, I think, giving the investor the best understanding possible of the risk versus reward. I think that they help. They're the ones that put a finite number on your rehab, which ultimately plays a huge role in determining what your numbers calculate out to be. They also, as far as their work and their quality, they're the ones that are going to keep you on time and on budget, because if you're borrowing money and they take 2 months longer than they said, that's money out of your pocket. If they're not delivering the superior product that they promised, and then even though we shot for a high quality ARV and we thought we might get the most in the neighborhood or whatever, then that quality is not there, and they skimped and they put in super cheap flooring, or used horrible paint. You can see stuff coming through, whatever the situation is. So I would say that a lot of kind of that the responsibility of the project, honestly, and a lot of the risk versus reward, which is why I try to be really transparent with. I mean, most of the stuff I do right now is for myself, but when I work with other people, I try to be really transparent. And I say, we could put 30 in and you could make 25, or we could put 50 in and you could make 45. It's up to you, and I just kind of lay it out there like that, because at the end of the day, if they hire me to do the project, I'm the one that signed a contract with them and took money from them, just like I do with any other client working in their home. And so I've got on paper and I've got a contract with them that, of course, if I think it'll take 6 weeks, I might say 8, just to make sure that I don't, put my foot in my mouth, basically. And if something catastrophic comes up, I can discuss that with them. But communication is key as well. But basically, I'd say at the end of the day, you're just kind of helping them spell out and look at the big picture and help them determine, is the risk versus reward on this particular property worth it or not to move forward.
Yeah, the big thing for me about, I get a lot of questions about why should I use a general contractor if I can go get all the subs myself. And for me, it's managing time, right? So me as I have a full-time job, right? I can't spend all my time looking for subcontractors, managing each subcontractor. Hey, you guys do the plumbing. Hey, you guys do electric. Hey, you guys, and then managing them through their progress. So yes, you may be spending a additional fee for the general contractor, but that fee is very well spent if you're running a business and not being part of the business.
Well, and one thing to speak to that, and I think that I've learned this over the last several years, is the time management aspect, not just because they may have a 8 to 5 Monday through Friday type job and they think, oh, I'm going to do this on the side, or, oh, I can manage it from a distance. But if you don't have someone there, if you're subbing out every single thing to different people, you don't know when the baseboards need to be delivered. When does the granite need to be installed? At what point does the backsplash go in? Oh, we painted before we did the flooring. Now, so they are going to help their job at least is to take care of all of that. And ultimately the whole project goes way quicker. So at the end of the day, if I get done in 6 weeks on a project that takes you 3 months, whatever fee you had to pay me, I'm sure was not as much as the interest you're paying on an extra 2 months of money. Now, if you just have all the money in the world and you can just afford to hire and leisurely flip through life, like I wish I was you, first of all. So if that's where you're at, maybe that's different. Maybe it's fun for you. Maybe you like the interior design aspect. I mean, I guess you can do whatever you want. But if you're really trying to be efficient about it and make money, that's why you're paying them to do what they do. Because I know when the electrician needs to go in, I know who can work on top of each other, like what tradesmen can be there at the same time. And then there are certain tradesmen that can't be there at the same time because you can't have people, you know what I mean? It's like a jigsaw puzzle, basically, humans. And so they're helping to manipulate in a good way. They're helping to manipulate and make that go like as efficiently as possible. So whatever you pay them, I promise you it's not worth the headache and the house sitting there for 2 extra months just because you're trying to do it around your lunch break and on the weekends and stuff like that. I mean, that's my opinion, but I mean, that's been my experience. The people that think they can do it, even if they're really, really handy and they know how to do some of these things, you don't know what to manage until you're there every single day, all day long. You just don't know. You don't know when they need the vanities, when they need the kitchen cabinet set. You know, it just becomes a game. So I think that avoiding all that is just going to help your project be way less stressful for you, and it's just going to go a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's the reason why general contractors can do what they do. They had the effort of that first, second, third, fourth, 16th, 18th, 20th job to figure out how to do that. And if you cut them out, you're cutting out that experience, that expertise. And again, like Anna said, it's going to cost you one way or another.
Yes, it will. It definitely will. So let's recap the steps of the wholesale deal, Neil, and let's define from the beginning to the sale the other players, the other team members that you need, from the title company to the realtor to all that, so we can get it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, obviously once you find the deal, like I said, online marketing preferably works best. It's the cheapest and most efficient route. But then once you get the deal, go on the appointment, get the house under contract. And then you take the contract to a title company. Now, title companies are a little tricky, especially on wholesale deals. On fix and flip deals, they're not as bad. They're pretty straightforward. It's just a purchase transaction. But on wholesales, you got to be careful because not every title company can do a wholesale assignment transaction. Not every title company can do a double close transaction. And so, there are at least 20 title companies, probably more in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, like the big chains. They've got a couple of locations like all over the place, right, in just DFW. But even the same company across different offices can't do an assignment transaction.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, between like your realtors, your wholesalers, your investors, and your GCs, you got to do a good job of asking for referrals for investor-friendly title companies that can do those creative transactions. Or if you don't have those team members yet and you're still working on that, then all you got to do is just pull up a list of title companies in the area, dial up every single one of them, and ask them, hey, can you do a wholesale transaction? A lot of them will say, what is that? And so you explain it to them. And at that point, they'll either say, no, we don't, yes, we do, or let me talk to the actual closing agent and then I'll get back to you, right? So it can be any one of those different answers. Just go down that list, just mark who said no, who said yes, blah, 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 right? And then you find your title company. And, obviously there's a process, right? Like, for example, my first deal was a subject to deal, which is more complicated than a straight purchase, and it's even more complicated than a wholesale. And so there is not a single title company in DFW that could do it. So I had to get a real estate attorney to close that deal for me, and a title company to do title insurance on that. So it was just one of those deals where you just got to keep calling. You got to keep trying to find those people. But once you get it into a title company, they'll start doing the title search on it. They'll start pulling reports, doing the research, and giving you a commitment for title insurance. And while this process is going on, as it's at the title company, as soon as you give it to them, as soon as it's under contract and you have that signed contract, you can start marketing the deal. You can do networking, market the deal, Craigslist, Facebook, at this point, I've got an email list where my deals goes out to these investors. There's also a separate list. It's not an email list, but I've got a handful of buyers, about 5 to 10 buyers, that I let them know first that I have a deal on the market, right? Or I'm sorry, not on the market, off the market, right? And so I text them, I call them, hey, I got this deal. Do you want it? And if they all say no, then it goes to my email list. If they say yes, then my general list never sees it. Also, if you guys are wanting to be in like the fix and flip rehabbers and not wholesalers, a wholesaler is very important to build a relationship with, because guess what? The people on my email list get a higher price than the people that I call and text, right? And so it's not just your realtors, your GCs, and your title companies. That wholesaler that you're buying deals from, that's sending deals to you, just because you don't like their price point doesn't mean you should never contact them. Call them, because they might actually have a handful of their first go-to people that are getting a better deal. Now, don't get me wrong, my email list doesn't get a bad deal. It's just usually a $2,000 to $5,000 premium that they're paying. Still a good deal, but they're not getting as great of a deal as they would be if they had a relationship with them, right? So it's not only the GC, the realtor, the title company, but your wholesaler or the rehabber. It's important to have a good relationship on the other side of the fence, regardless of which part of the transaction you're in. So once you find the buyer, depending on how you want to close it, you can either do an assignment or a double close. If I'm not making over $10,000, I do an assignment. So anything from, I've never done a wholesale deal for less than $2,000. So 2 to 10,000, I do an assignment. Anything above 10,000, I do a double close. And I use transactional funding for that. And there's usually about a 1.5% fee. But, again, depending on if I'm making $20,000 on a $50,000 house, I'm willing to pay 1.5% to, get that difference, right? So yeah, you did all that, sign the assignment contract or the other, just the whole track contract if you're double closing, and then you take that to the title company. They'll put it all together. They'll schedule out closing, and you just sit back and wait. Of course, there is a little bit more work. It's not as easy to sit back and wait, but you just kind of want to be in contact with sellers and buyers. But for the most part, your legwork is done. So the only thing that you're doing at this point, other than relaxing, is just kind of making sure that everyone's in contact. Because the seller's never going to be talking to the buyer. The buyer's never going to be talking to the seller. And so you want to be that bridge between the title company, the buyer, and the seller to make sure the transaction flows smoothly.
So a question I get a lot from new wholesalers or wannabe wholesalers maybe is, do I find the deal first, or do I find the buyer first?
Deal.
Yeah, and okay, so there's an obvious answer for the market condition right now, which is find the deal first, right? Because in today's market, you will always find a buyer. It's the deals that are hard to come by. Now, if it turns into a buyer's market, which of course there's real estate cyclical, right? So it'll always go down just as it's come up. So if it's a down market and it's a buyer's market, then go find your buyers first. But for the last, 8 years and for probably the next couple of years, you're going to be wanting to find the deal first, because there's always people in Facebook groups, on Craigslist, on Marketplace that are looking for these deals actively. They've got VAs doing it. They're doing it. Everyone's doing it. So, at that point, you just want to find the deal first.
All right, we got a question from PV. Any recommendations for title companies, or is calling them direct best for a wholesaler?
So Lawyers Title is a pretty good one. They do an amazing job. They're very thorough. They have a real estate attorney in-house if like something really, really complicated comes up, like it has with my last deal. But, again, not every Lawyer's Title does a wholesale deal either. So just call the ones that are close to you. Maybe they do it, maybe not, but just start with the closest one to you or to your office, and then just kind of move out from there to see who can coordinate that transaction for you.
Well, and I would say, do you still use Tracy?
I do, yes.
See, yeah. Tracy is in McCain in Plano. They do They will send someone to you.
They send me a courier for free. That's what I like. She comes to my house. I'm in my pajamas drinking coffee. I sign my paperwork. Yeah. It's a good day for me.
They're off Tennyson, so it's not close to us. It's in Plano, Legacy. But we can do it for them easy, and they work magic quickly.
And they were really reasonably priced. There were some things that, everybody's a little higher or lower in certain things, but they were really reasonably priced. Good. And they sent me a courier for free. I was really pumped about it. I also like North American Title. And then...
But that's not for wholesaling.
Oh, I guess you're right. Sorry, not for wholesaling.
That's okay.
Yeah, Lawyer's Title is great. The one that I use right now, I haven't gone with anyone else for like the last 6 months since I found them, because they send a notary to the actual buyer and seller's house. And so, there's always, obviously, disclose, but also there's never that. As a wholesaler, you always have that kind of worry of the seller and the buyer running into each other and like talking about the numbers, right? And so you got to like schedule them at different times and everything. But with my current title company, I've never had to worry about that because no one actually ever goes into the office and they wire me the money. So, it works very, very well.
And they're really good.
Yeah, they're good.
Cool. Okay, well, let's, I think we stepped through the steps and the people, the team. You want to do the case study?
Yes.
And the wholesale deal. All right. Well, we all been waiting for it.
Tell the story how we found.
I am.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to walk you through our job. But before I do, this is a job that Neil brought us. It's the last deal that we've done with Neil. It was over in Fort Worth. It was found, I guess, by one of your ads. And so, John.
Yeah. So I can lead up to the wholesaling part. So this lead actually came in from a Google ad. And so, someone's searching on Google, sell my house for cash, investors, things like that. And when they do, I've got targeting out there for where my link shows up in the top 3. Hopefully number 1, but with all these big companies, it's difficult sometimes, but shows up in the top 3. They click on the link, they go to my website, they enter their information, and that triggers a phone call. And so he actually bought the house for his son, I want to say 3 years ago, when his son came up here to go to TCU for his college. He got a baseball scholarship. And so him and his wife, live down in Austin, right? And so they ended up buying the house so that, he'd have a place to stay while he went to school. And, he left. And so they're just trying to get rid of the house, retire, and just go on with their lives. And, during the time that he had the house, he didn't take great care of it. So it was kind of in not great shape. And so, there was a lot of work to do. So he couldn't just put it back on the market. And so he reached out to me and we got the house under contract.
And I did the initial walkthrough video because Neil reached out to me and said, "Hey, you want to buy this house?" And I walked through it with Anna and Abra, and I said no, and they said, "We'll buy it."
And I said, "Are you sure, John?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, Neil.
Yeah.
I'll see you later."
Yeah.
And we bought it like a week later.
We bought it, and what this home I think really shows the potential of opportunity. Not so much like let's study this, how the money would have worked out and whatnot. It's that it was a crappy home in the sense that it was stinky. A dog had clearly lived in that home and never been outside.
It was so gross.
I mean, the carpet disintegrated.
Yeah.
It was that gross.
It was not great.
There was a great deal of renovations that's traditional in any flip you do, whether it's a well cared for property or not. The question is how are we going to cap the market and get the highest price point? This house had a pool. And pools generally get more money than the typical home that doesn't have it because it's just that added bonus of value. And so when we were equating what we should put in this home, we were evaluating against the comps. And this is a part of Fort Worth that is slowly starting to transition over. After we did this flip, we've noticed, I watch the market even after we sell a home. And the housing market in this area is already going through its next, jump of flippers. And, open door and things like that go in, do some marginal stuff, but nothing really of great importance, to be honest. And so when we looked at the numbers, we knew we had a ceiling. We had a ceiling at like 185 when we bought it. We were catching as we got closer into the sale of the home about 190. And so we knew we were going to cap somewhere at 200, which when you're below 200,000 in a buyer's, like headed to a buyer's market, that house goes fast. When you have a pool before you start the summer, it goes fast as well. The thing is that we have to fight our appraisals. This is the thing that I don't think everybody pays attention to, is that you're more than likely going to have a buyer that has financing, and they're going to potentially be government or they're going to be conventional. And that appraisal is going to dictate what you actually make. If you've done repairs after they've done the inspection, if you negotiated the price, maybe you've gone into multiple offers, maybe you haven't, maybe you went below the value of what you sold it or you put it on the market for, maybe you went a little bit above, but you're trying to figure out how are you going to walk away with that number. And that appraisal is truly your bottom line. So the reason why this is the most important case study is because not only was it an opportunity to take a wholesale deal that was crap in a really kind of good, still solid part of an area and turn it into something better, was that we paid attention to the finish outs. We paid attention to the bones and the style of the home. Anybody can throw Carrara marble in a house. Anybody can put some kind of plank flooring in a home, gray walls, and call it a day. The truth is you kind of have to take whatever you get and turn it into something that someone's going to want to live in with the highest value. We don't do anything below value. We are not lipstick on a pig type of, renovators. Mm-hmm. We are homeowners. We think of it from the perspective, if we moved in this house, would we want to live here? Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to show you real quickly is how we were able to not only show the finish outs on this home and get this place, at the top dollar, but we were able to gross the highest this neighborhood has yielded thus far and hit the appraisal to the point where it got approved and pushed through the system. Yeah. So bear with me 1 second while I get us to that shared screen.
Because originally our ARV, we had planned on our after repair value. We were thinking about 185 to be conservative, but we were hoping for like 185 to 195. And at the end of the day, there's a few things that I will tell you about here in a second that she did to kind of ensure that we just really got that top dollar on top of the good construction that we did. But we didn't raise our budget. It's not like I spent more money so we got more money. It was a couple of things she's going to talk about. My point is, because we set our ARV realistically, excuse me, and then we did such a good job with it, that's why we were able to get almost 20,000 more than what we even thought we would get.
This house sold for 204 and 204.5, and that neighborhood had not gone above 202. And that seems kind of like a silly little thing. Can y'all see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to let Google help me out here.
You guys want to see the before walkthrough? Yeah, we can see it now. If you want to see the Google, the before walkthrough, I'll put a link to the video in the description.
Show them the video, because we were trying to find pictures.
Well, for the purpose of this, I don't know that matters as much as I really want to kind of showcase.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put the video link in there if you want to see it.
For you to see a comparison and a contrast, because you're going to clearly see that it's a night and day difference. The point is that you're trying to find a way to get this market to get to the highest you can, because as the market continues to go down a little bit and our values still, like the home values are staying, right? But the sales price is going to go down because more inventory is flooding the market. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that when you hit the market, your price point may be very different than what you originally thought, just because of the way the market economy is going. And what we paid attention to was a higher end product, even though this was a neighborhood that didn't necessarily sell luxury homes. You can see from the kitchen to the outside perspective, we've updated the cabinetry, we painted it, we added new appliances. This had a very open floor plan. We kept it open. We installed new flooring. What I want you guys to notice as we look through these rooms is that we have it staged. That seems like probably the silliest thing in the world, but
nobody wants to spend money on it.
Massive difference.
I didn't even spend money on it until like my last 2 or 3 houses, and we sold this house in 4 days only because we chose to, but we had 17 viewings in the first 48 hours, and we had 4 offers by the end of the weekend. So I got to choose basically which one I wanted out of the 4 that worked best. And a lot of that I feel like was because, it looks nice. I can
looks great
back, but I do think the staging helps, because I didn't realize it was a gift to be able to see an empty room and then imagine something in it. I didn't realize that was a thing. So apparently people, they really can't see what things look like or whatever until they kind of get some furniture in there. And so the staging, and then also, I think Abra's going to mention about this, but the photography is another thing that your realtors should be paying for. But if your realtor's walking through, I don't care what kind of phone they say they have or what kind of great camera they say they have, it's just not the same. It's just not. So if they're not getting someone to come out and take professional pictures, then you need to get another realtor.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the truth.
Well, and I mean, there's not much, that's kind of it. So I won't necessarily labor on that shared screen for too long so we can keep talking to the point.
Yeah, it looks great.
What I wanted y'all to see, has it stopped sharing? Okay, good.
Yeah.
What I wanted y'all to see was that when you looked at it, it looks like someone lives there. And it gives the appearance that it's fresh, it's clean, it's ready. We have tried it when we first started the market. We tried not staging. We've tried not taking professional photography because you're always trying to save something.
Right.
Like realtor fees when you're the seller, which let me just say, try selling it by yourself and it will be really, really hard if you want to go into multiple offers, if you want to sell quickly, and if you want to have the best advice on how to gauge the right contract, because financing from the buyer can make the deal go south, things like that. Pay for a good realtor. Don't do a 2.5% commission or a 1.5% commission because you honestly will get what you pay for. But we tried all of those things in the beginning because it seemed like, let's save ourselves some money on what we control. But the truth is buyers buy online. They don't buy in person. They're going to potentially go through the first open house, but they're going to find it online and then walk through it with the realtor. They're going to come through with a realtor. So if you do it for sale by yourself, just be prepared. You're still going to work with a realtor one way or another. But if you work with an agent, you're never going to have to go to that property. She never had to go. She never had to worry about it. She didn't have to approve any types of showings. She didn't have to worry about how many times the contracts came in and at what time was the deadline. I did it all for her. The thing that she got to do was sit down and look at all those contracts. And so all of our contracts came above asking. And when we got to the appraisal point, the appraisers tend to call the sellers and have a conversation. Even though the buyer is buying the appraisal, sometimes the appraiser needs to understand, like, how do I get access? What's going on with the property? Little things like that. The appraiser specifically told me that this property functioned like an HGTV type of showing, which was great and complimentary. But he goes, I saw your home online because this is happening all across the complex. He goes, I kind of thought we'll see when we see it in person. There's so many flippers out there that it can make a home look great online. Good photography, it can look really flossy and be really pretty. But when you start to walk through it and the floor is moving with you, or maybe the material on the wall is not sturdy, or the paint job clearly isn't like thorough and has a very, like maybe the door is half painted, or the hardware is falling off, or the oven is actually used, it's not new. It's like all of a sudden that's the reason why no one's walking through that home. And the appraiser said that when he walked through our product, not only was that staging beneficial to show the size of the space, because this was a small home in the sense that some of the rooms were smaller and tight. And so it was really hard for anybody to see that vacant space if there had been nothing there as to, can you really fit 2 couches? Can you really do all this furniture in here? But then when he walked through it, he said the quality is what stuck out to him and got our appraisal value above. He originally went above our appraisal value. We sold it higher than that because the financing became an issue, but he appraised it even higher than 205. I don't know what that number is because I didn't pay for the appraisal, but I just know that at 205 was what the offers were, or the one I picked was, and I know it came back higher than that. Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty good. We didn't miss money on the market. I don't want it to sound like there was money on the table and we missed it. It just, when an appraiser comes through and says, you appraise at, or you appraise less, or you appraise more, you're really trying to get that deal to go through. When an appraiser comes in and says, well, gosh, it was $20,000 more. When you're the highest one in the neighborhood, you really can't get much more than that. Yeah, that's the highest thing you're not sold over there. You're not able to rehab the Taj Mahal and get Taj Mahal pricing. It's just not possible.
So how much staging do you do?
We do staging. So I use Model My Home, and they have 3 different packages. And luxury packaging is something that we're not going to talk about because it's just not possible with our listings to do that. That's like 3,000 plus square feet. You're looking at $1 million listings or close to it, things like that. So the 2 I specifically focus on is, I believe, their standard and their premier. I
give them the basic rooms.
I do premier because the premier actually showcase the living room, 2 kitchen areas. If you have a 3rd living space, you can do it like that. And then the master, and then all the bathrooms. If you have an outdoor patio that's covered, they will do that. That's the kind of way that we chose to do it. And we put more furniture in than sometimes is needed. Because in my experience working with buyers, when I tour properties that are either vacant and they have or have not been staged, we sit in that home for a very long time trying to figure out where a couch could go or how this could fit, or is the room really that big? And as soon as you put furniture into that room, there's no question.
Yeah, it answers all of that
for
everybody that walks in.
The one study that we did, we had a house sat on the market for 9 months.
Wow.
It was vacant, had no furniture in it. It was a beautiful rehab. The price didn't change. So then we decided to put furniture in there, relist it, same price. Nothing's different about it except now there's furniture in it. It's sold in a week with the same price.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. Was that the Plano house?
No, that one finally ended up going. That was a realtor issue because I switched realtors on that one. That one sold itself, thankfully. But this one was one over in Fort Worth. Yeah, it was still in Fort Worth area, but it was over by.
It's by Fossil Ridge. It's like the Keller side of Fort Worth.
Yeah, by Keller. And so we had done a really big, like 3,000 square foot house over there. And I think it was almost just too much space. People didn't really know what to do with it. Yeah. And so we just been waiting and waiting. And then we threw furniture in there within a week, sold it at the same price. I guess because people could visualize what was going on, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, photography and staging, they will really help.
So you said expect your, because I've never done professional photography. I've never done staging. Do a blank canvas. Did you say that your realtor should handle the professional photography?
When you pay 3% for your realtor, when a seller sells, there's 6% total typically. This is negotiable, but this is the way it goes. 3% goes to the buyer. The buyer's broker is broken into that 3%. The buyer typically only gets 1%, but you see what I'm saying. The listing agent, this is kind of where it's most important for you to find somebody who really knows what they're doing. There's a 3% that goes to your listing agent, right? One of that percentage goes to the broker that they're with, unless they broker themselves. One of that percent goes to the agent. And then the other percent, I won't use that finger, but the other percent goes to the marketing. That means professional photography, that could be drone photography. We were going to do a drone of that house because it had a pool. But of course, the day we listed it rained.
Yeah, it was raining.
So we
don't have any exterior professional pictures.
We did eventually, but they never put them online.
We didn't even have to put them online.
Yeah, because we sold it before we needed them. But drone photography is really important if you've got an aerial. Aerial shots really do work more than you realize. And that's what the realtor should pay for. They should be the ones marketing and doing a lot of work for your property. And that 1% goes a long way.
Well, and just to be clear, the 3% is like an actual thing. Her 1% is kind of the way her stuff breaks down. But you'll have some realtors that make the 3% and they don't even give you professional photography.
Fire them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is her breakdown. That's about like what she thinks, and that's how she handles her business. But that is, in my opinion, I'm not just saying this because she's my business partner, but versus every other realtor I've ever worked with, like she really does kind of go above and beyond. So I don't know that everyone's going to give you that much, but at a minimum, they need to be giving you professional photography and making it look nice online. Because the thing is, everyone shops for everything online these days, right? I mean, everything. And so if it doesn't look flossy online and it doesn't look like HGTV, basically, they're not even really going to come see it. They're not even interested unless they are looking for a fixer-upper
really
or the price, but nothing we do is on the low end of pricing. So for me, I guess it's just that you've got to make it look really nice because that's what's going to draw people in. And then what's going to keep them there is by not only having great photography, but the product itself not being cheap quality and actually being quality. That's what's going to get your offers.
And we're purely talking about the flip. Wholesaling does not do anything like this. They don't need to.
Right.
But flips, you need to put this kind of attention into your deal, because as we go into a buyer's market, who's going to be the one looking at you and who's got the advantage? The buyer. And so if you're not giving them what gives them a fresh and clear perspective, I mean, if you're selling a house under $200,000, it may sell itself, but why not sell it in a couple days and just get it taken care of by making it done right the first time?
Fantastic. Yeah. That's great. That's good. So you bought the house, rehabbed it, got the photography, got the staging, and then you sold it at a great profit. That's excellent case study, I'd say. Good job, guys. Appreciate it.
And what did it take? The whole thing took 2 months?
2 months.
2 months, wow.
From close to close.
It was the fastest deal. That's why we're like, Neil, when you're ready.
Yeah.
When you're ready. It worked out really well. But yeah, it was like a little 6-week project, and then we sold it in 4 days, and then we closed 2 or 3 weeks later by the end of May. So yeah.
And our price point helped, and we had a pool, but like, even in the properties we've had where we don't have those types of things and we at a higher price point, we don't have pools, I'm telling you, staging is like the number one thing, and then really good photography.
Okay, good deal.
And a clean house. I've never really thought that would be the reason why someone wouldn't buy a house, but I've had more buyers come back and say that house was not clean. And I don't know what that means when there's no one living there.
Yeah.
You know, cobwebs happen, things like that happen, but remember, yards trimmed, which we've had to learn the hard way, and cleaning the house. Got to keep it clean.
You got to keep a clean house. That's for
all
sure.
All the way till it closes too. Don't be a crappy transaction where you're just like, oh, you got a contract? Good luck. I've let everything go, including that pool
or the yard, or
yeah.
Anyway,
so do we have any case study on doing professional picks? Craig's asking, on a wholesale deal. I've seen some really bad photos on some of these. Does that affect the investor as buyer?
On a wholesale deal, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you've got a relatively modern smartphone, you're good as a wholesaler.
Yeah.
I take pictures on my iPhone 10 whenever I walk a property, and I just stand in the corners, tuck myself in, try to get as much of the room as possible. Do it in every room, every bathroom, and then one at the front. And, you know, if they've got something going on in the back, I'd take a picture of that too. But, like, as a wholesaler, it doesn't matter, because the investor – here's the deal. When you're staging and you're doing professional pictures for an end buyer, you're doing it for the retail market. They're relatively an unsophisticated market, and so that's where it comes in, to where they can't picture the room with furniture. They can't picture beyond the minor imperfections, right? Like cobwebs. An investor can see past cobwebs. We've seen worse, right? And exactly. And so investors, as a whole, don't care, because we can see past all that stuff. We can see past the crappy pictures, because the worst looking houses make us the most money as an investor, so we don't care. However, when someone's buying it retail to live in, that's where their family is. That's where their kids are going to go. So it's a big deal for them. So yeah, as a wholesaler, it doesn't really matter. Just take pictures on your phone. If you want to do it fancy and you got a camera, take it on your camera. But you really don't need to pay anyone or do anything for that.
You just need to get a lot, because if you're doing on-market listings, we're going to see them on MLS. And if we can only get 2 shots, we're going to start, if there's no pictures, like, it's not a good deal. But like, I've had agents, I've had wholesalers where they've given me at least 9, and I can see the grand scope of what that space is going to look like. Because if you've got a good realtor, they're going to be hunting for you. If you've told them, I want Tarrant County, I want under this amount of money, they're going to be having a search. I have a search that hits my email every single day for her. And that way I can look at it when we're in the market to buy, and I can either see from the wholesalers that are sending things to me or from the on-market deals that are sending things to me, I'm vetting them through. If you don't have pictures, I'm going to assume you might be a property worth seeing, but we've seen some really crappy, like, there was a pentagram on the bottom floor what happened there kind of properties.
No
like,
joke.
Was somebody like died here? Like,
it felt evil when we walked in.
We've seen some really crappy homes.
So I've seen some crappy homes myself.
right? We're not afraid to walk through them, but if you don't do enough, your listing is going to get underneath somebody who did.
That's true. Yeah. But
because there's too many. There's enough crappy properties in the Metroplex to go around. And if your crappy property doesn't have enough photography to show that it's even worth touring, I'm probably not going to tour it. I'm going to go to the next one because I don't have a lot of time and I've got to meet them there and I've got to tour them through it. And so you help people out when you take enough pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as, I kind of briefly mentioned this, but when you're looking for a buyer, you got to put together a wholesale packet. That's your comps, that's your repair estimates, that's your pictures, right?
Yeah.
And so usually for me, those are if they're the people that I'm calling or texting, I'm texting them the information. If they're going to my email list, they're getting an actual PDF with a Dropbox link to all of the pictures and links to all the pages on that actual wholesale packet. So yeah, it really, again, depends on, you got to know your market, right? Whether it's sales or marketing or negotiation, whatever it is, you got to know your market. You got to know the sophistication level of your market to kind of determine what you do. So it's different when talking to an investor and different when talking to a retail buyer.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. All right. To wrap that part up, Neil, what advice would you give to a wholesaler or a potential wholesaler that would give them an edge on their business?
Do online marketing and do it with a plan. Do it with a plan, because I have seen people dump thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on Google and Facebook without a single lead.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun.
But yeah, do online marketing. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know what you're doing. Don't just go in there, with blinders on and dump money and try to figure it out. Here's the difference. I had a student start with me in Dallas like 2 or 3 weeks ago. His ad went live on Facebook, and within a couple of hours, he had leads coming in. He got his first lead for like $8, right? And he's been consistently getting leads for between $25 and $50 a lead. And so if you know what you're doing, that's what you can accomplish consistently and repeatably. And so those are going to be your KPIs for your deals. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can waste thousands of dollars too. So
yeah. All right, we'll hook up later. Anna,
yes.
What advice would you give a real estate investor on how to be successful from a GC standpoint?
Always overestimate your timelines and your budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the big one, because everything, even me to date, I mean, I've gotten pretty good on my timelines and budgets, and I'm just really close every time now, but that's taken years to get to that point. And even at that, there's always surprises that can throw me off. A few days here, a few days there, got to manipulate the budget again. So I would just say, no matter how much you think it's going to cost, how much time you think it's going to take, I would add about 2 more weeks to that, and I would add another probably 10% on your budget, because it's just what it is.
Oops factor, right?
Always.
It happens, yeah.
If you don't spend it, then yay. That's
right.
Extra profit you made early, basically. But yeah, I would just say better be safe than sorry. Just be conservative.
Absolutely. All right. Abra, advice from a realtor perspective to a real estate investor.
So as an investor, you sadly don't have as much control as you think once you get the ball rolling. You're relying on a real estate agent, you're relying on a GC, you're relying on things that you may not always have direct access to based on your experience. I would say utilize that grouping of people. The parts that you can control are finding the right people, figuring out who works for you and with you to help you build your wealth through this opportunity. Because if you're going to do a buy and hold strategy, you really need to kind of think that through very differently than a flip. If you're going to wholesale it, that's also a very different thing. But it's all related to the same industry, right? We all have different components that play into the same part of making each other successful. And if you can't find those right people, this will be a really hard thing to do.
Awesome. Great advice. Great advice. Anything else, guys, that I missed that we were going to discuss?
I don't think so.
Awesome.
Building your team is about building relationships. So invest in people. Yeah. Take them to lunch. Go out for a drink. Do something. Get to know them.
And this industry is not easy.
It's not.
Don't be discouraged if, like, please don't do any transactions that make you lose money, but don't be discouraged if you go after a deal and it doesn't work out, or maybe the numbers aren't right. The truth is, the more you do it, the easier it's going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely going to be a little feast or famine, but the more you get better at it, the more feast it becomes.
True.
All right, good deal. We got some.
Setting this up.
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you guys for showing up. Do we have anybody in the attendees that want to talk or want to share anything that we discussed, or want to share your business? Just put in voice if you want to talk. Put in video if you want to be on video at any time. That's fine. So this kind of want to make this kind of like a meetup. What was the title company you mentioned? Lawyer's Title.
Yep.
It's Lawyer's Title in Plano. It's off of Tennyson Parkway, the major intersections of 121 and Dallas North Tollway. So
Okay.
they're the only one in the area.
Do you know if they have other out-of-state stuff?
It's nationwide. Are they a nationwide company?
They are nationwide. Like, I was in Big Bear 4th of July, and I saw Lawyer's Title up in the mountains. So that was
funny.
cool. But again, not every single office can handle a wholesale transaction. So if you're out of the state or in a different part of the country, just make sure. Yeah, if you're in Canada, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But if anyone else watching this at a later time, if you're in a different state or anything, just call those title companies near you, and as you go down that list, you're going to get at least one that can handle that transaction for you.
Awesome. Craig's in Keller, so he can use Lawyer's Title. So how do people contact you?
Yeah, so I used to just give out my cell phone number, but since this is going on, I'm not going to do that. However,
you're going to send me a link or something, and I'll put it in the notes that I send out?
Yeah, I texted you
okay.
The link. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my email down in the chat box, as well as a link, as well as my scheduler link. So if you want to talk about, like John said, we don't sell anything here, but if you want to talk about coaching or done for you lead generation, where my marketing company handles the motivated seller lead generation for you, then just go through the link and schedule a call, and we can talk about that as well.
Cool. Anna?
Just sorry. Just so you know, just because you book a call does not mean I will work with you. I have turned away many number of people because I didn't think they were going to be a good fit for any number of reasons. So, I just want you to know that beforehand. Don't be disappointed if I say no. There's a very particular type of person that is going to be good at real estate investing and going to be taking action. And it's not necessarily a personality type. It's just more of a, what are they willing to do to get to their goals? And so if I don't get the feeling that you're that type of person from either your application or the call that we have together, then I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to work with you.
So there's some criteria to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, how about you? How do we contact you?
I sent you Abra's business card, because as far as how our business works between the two of us, she's more of the administrative in the office. Contact her for appointments and viewings and those types of things, because I'm usually at the job site, so I'm not always available to answer.
Yeah.
But I sent you, so if you want to put that in the link or whatever, but
sure.
Please contact her and it'll get to me.
And I'll give you my business line, 214-302-7557.
Awesome. And that's for.
I am, but
that's for what area do you work in?
I'm all over.
DFW,
we specialize in Tarrant County for our business, but my business is all over. So
over Dallas Fort Worth.
DFW.
Okay,
and if I can help you, I will have somebody who can. I work with a team of agents, and so there's no way I can't help you get to where you want to go, whether it be through me or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and cool. So And I'd like to invite everybody to go to my website, johnnythehousebuyer.com, and also look me up on YouTube for all the videos that I've done. I've got a lot of how-to videos. Look me up on YouTube, Johnny the House Buyer, and I'll put some links and I'll send out some information, the notes that we've taken here. And let me know what other topics you guys want to talk about too. So whatever topics you want, we can get these guys back if they are willing to come back, as well as other guests that we can reach out to. And if you want to be a guest on the show, definitely reach out to me at johnnythehousebuyer.com, and we'll talk about how you can get on as a guest. So guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Neil, Abrianna, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming and attending. I'll post this on the YouTube channel if you guys want to watch the replays or anything like that. And as always, be a light, speak truth, change lives, and I wish you much success in your business and in life.
Yay.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Thanks.